Bayo, as I told you before, Ray Winston and his business partner, Gary Pettit, they've launched a new sports agency called Integral Sports Management. So it's like a boutique style agency, like a new era of how to look after especially young players. So what I'm doing every fortnight is I'm speaking to power people in the industry like yourself. It's called the Integral Chat. We're just going to discuss, your experiences or what you've been through and ideas for how we can help sort of the next generation of players coming through, because it's a tough business and you know better than anybody how tough it is. So mentoring is really important to ISM. How important is it for you to help those guys who are perhaps inexperienced, who perhaps might feel the pressure a lot more than you, going into those big occasions?
Massive. It's massive. I'm starting a mentoring company. We're going to have a mentoring scheme where I think it's imperative that listen, I think society, but of course we can streamline it and talk about the profession we're in, that the mind is as powerful as the body. So we train rigorously every day on our body, on our fitness. And I feel that you have to do the same thing with your mind, because listen, I feel like when you attach football or footballer in front of anything, I think people perceive footballers as like some superheroes. Well, you don't have problems, you don't. And I kid you not, football, for all its great things, because it's given me so much in life, and I'm so thankful. And as a kid, that's what I wanted to do. Football is harsh. People only see the game. They don't see they literally don't see what goes on during the week. They don't see that, at times you feel like hired help. They don't understand that, especially the players in the lower leagues, that, if you have a bad season, you could be at the game the next season. You don't see that. So the mental side of it, I think, is powerful. So my role, I think people with experience, I mean, of course, they say age comes with experience, but I just think when knowledge is power. So if you can therefore help somebody by saying, look, this is what I went through. I'm not saying you have to do it exactly like me, but this is what I went through. And I think that maybe you should try it this way. And then it's for them to kind of fuse it and put their own sauce on it. I think it's imperative. So, but then I do think it's a balance, because I mean, I laugh all the time and I say, I can't run like these kids anymore. I can't. So it's a balance. I use their energy. You've got the kids saying, oh, well, you're old, you can't do it no more. And it's a balance. So you're like, okay, let me show you. And then, so you use each other. So you use each other's strength. So I use their energetic, I use their gusto for life and football, and then of course, where I'll be like, where the pressure is, it's like, listen, it's one game, don't ever get too high, don't ever get too low. The key is to stay balanced. So I think it's imperative that the experienced boys and the older boys pass on the knowledge that they've learned.
Absolutely. And you have had a journey. I think that's pretty, the journey that you've had, not many players do get that. You played in Lithuania as a teenager. On the advice of your agent. I don't know if you kept him on after that.
Man. No, to be fair, I didn't keep him on. But the craziest thing, and I actually say it to my kids, I wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad I did it. And it's the craziest thing, because like I look back at it and listen, I think you've got to try and take positives from most situations. That's what I think you've got to do. And at that time, that's kind of all I knew. All I wanted to do was play football. That was it. That was my reasons. That was my whys. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a house. I was 18 and my dream was to play football. And the only option or opportunity that was given to me was to go to Lithuania. So I can't frown on the only option or opportunity given to me at that time. It was professional. I was getting paid. It was so I can't kind of throw my nose up at it because I had nothing else here. So I had to go to what was there for me. But of course, when you come out the other side, you then look back here and think, rah, you know what? If my little man said, listen, Dad, at 18, I want to go to another country, of course, I'd be like, well, look, you know, there's a language barrier. Would there be a racial barrier? Would there be a food barrier? Like all these stuff, which I did not even contemplate. All I saw was football. And then, of course, I got there and I dealt with the language barrier. I dealt with the racial abuse. I dealt with the food. I dealt with having to grow up. I dealt with being isolated. You know,
Yeah, this is all on your own, I'm assuming.
This is all on my own. But I mean, I knew I was a very, very driven individual. You know, I was raised by African parents who, like back in the day, it's even probably still now, they wanted their kids to be a doctor and a lawyer. You know, they wanted their kids to go to university. My brother and sister both went to university. And I remember saying to my parents, I want to be a footballer. They knew I was driven. They knew that was what it was. So when I came to them at 18 and said, look, I've got an option. It's paid work. It's going to play football. It was like they couldn't stand in the way of it. But I guess when I talk to people now, this was 20 years ago. So when we're talking about no iPhones, no FaceTime, I was talking on MSN, you know, laptops. So when I'm talking about being alone, whereas now I go on holiday or if I go on work, my kids feel like they're in the room with me just because I can FaceTime them throughout my whole trip. Whereas that wasn't the case, you know, 20 years ago. So, but I'm kind of glad I went through it. Wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad I went, you know what I'm saying? I'm glad I went through it.
You won't have to do it again, thankfully.
Yeah.
So during your professional career, you've played in non-league, you've played in League Two, League One, you've lost in playoff finals, you've won in playoff finals, you've scored against Liverpool, you've broken your leg. You really have done everything. And I think it kind of culminated to that point where in what year was it? 2016, was it when you were out of the club? After what year was that? AFC Wimbledon.
2000. 2016. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
2016.
Yeah.
You were kind of at a crossroads at that point, weren't you?
Yeah.
And you called Neil Ardley out on live TV, saying,
yeah, I did.
Released, which is unbelievable. But was that a scary moment for you?
No. Do you know the weirdest thing is? No, it wasn't scary for me. You know, I broke my leg 2006 and I didn't have a club for 6 months and burnt through my savings after 4 months. So then I had to go and get a credit card, I had to get a loan. That was scary for me because I was unsure if I would get back from my injury.
Right.
So that was scary. So at the age of 34, I wasn't scared at that time because, I mean, I knew I could still play. So that wasn't, I keep saying I live by a mantra of, I don't do things to prove people wrong, I do things to prove myself right. So at the age of 34, I still knew I could play. So I wasn't scared at all. I just remember, feeling some type of way of how it was handled.
Yeah.
The being released at that time, it was, I just felt some type of way. But listen,
it wasn't in the best way handled. Is that what you're saying?
So that was it for me. But then I look at it now, and I'm a little bit more grown, and I'm kind of thinking, look, you know what? And this is not me giving him an out or giving him an excuse. But when you're a manager, you've got 20 plus things to think about, whereas I can only think about myself per se. So I felt it wasn't best handled for me. Whereas at the time, the gaffer's thinking, well, look, Ards is thinking, listen, I'm going to let B go regardless, but I don't really want it to come out too tough because we've got a massive game coming up. So win, lose or draw, can only win or lose, you know what I mean? Win, lose, I'm going to let him go. So for me, it was, okay, I get all that, but at the end of the day, for myself, I'm left. So yeah, beautiful thing, we get promoted, but but now I'm older and I'm thinking, listen, I get it. He probably handled it to the best way he thought was, you know what I'm saying? So I remember at the end of the game, I just got promoted out of League Two to League One. So the proof was in the pudding that I could still do it in League Two. So I was never scared, like, oh, what am I going to do at 34? You know, I was still at that time was like, listen, I can ball. So anybody who needs a striker out there, and the way I did it was, it's me. It was at the time I got interviewed. How do you feel now? You scored, rah, rah. And me, it was off the cuff. I'm like, listen, yeah, I'm technically unemployed. So if people are watching this game, come get this striker. So for myself, there was no animosity. Anybody who's seen me since, but in the moment, I get caught up in the moment. I always speak my mind. I try and be as authentic as possible. So it wasn't really me like calling them out per se. It was just camera or not camera. That's what I would have said, and it just happened to be with being there with a camera. So fearful wasn't fearful. I would be lying if I knew if the next 4.5 years was going to go the way it went. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? But I knew there was still life left in me, so I wasn't worried at that time, you know what I mean?
Well, it just took off after that for you, didn't it? But it's that thing about rejection. Obviously, at that time, at 34, you're already a strong mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, for kids, when they get rejected, it's a completely different ballgame, isn't it? Do you see a shift in the way these rejections or these releases of players are handled, or is it still very much old school?
Do you know what it is now? I think society's moved on. So there's a lot more access to individuals now. So, you know, it's, say a club gets, a person gets released from a club, they put it on the website, they'll put it on their Instagram, they'll put it on their TikTok account, like, oh, you know what? So-and-so's no longer with us, so we wish them the very best. So the world knows it. So, and as a kid anyway, it's hard to take rejection. So
do you think enough is done to look after players, especially like young academy players who haven't had that kind of bruising experience of being in the league?
Listen, this is what I'm saying. I think that it should be mandatory that there's a process put in place where you're dealing with them on a human level, in the sense of their mindset, in the sense of, look, and I've had this debate many times. Some people say, the elite say, look, don't have a backup plan, because if you have a backup plan, that means you're not putting your all in to what you want, you know? So some people have that mentality. Whereas my mum was like, look, put your all into it, but have a backup plan, because you never know. That was my mumsy from young. So I think clubs have to do more, in the sense, because look,
like aftercare, basically.
There has to be an aftercare, because I feel, this is what I say about footballers. I think footballers get held to a different standard to football clubs. So footballers will get, you're greedy, you're this, but tell me when a club has released a player and then ask them when they paid their bill, or Wednesdays. They don't. It's literally a machine.
And that's all they know as well.
Exactly. So it's, the system is, as much as it's football, and I know it's a balance here, I think there's clubs that see it as a business, because 50% of it is a business. It's entertainment and it's a business. So they're like, well, look, we're looking for the next Ronaldo, we're looking for the next Foden, or the Sterling, or whoever the next Sancho is. They're looking for the next one. So after that person who doesn't quite make it, they're like, well, now we've got to focus on the next 10, and then the next one's coming through. So for them, they'll turn around and be like, well, you know, we said, look, don't give up. You just can't make it here, but go so-and-so places where. So listen, I think that they keep saying it's a village to raise a kid. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, where it comes to, I think sometimes the expectation is very, very high, and the pressure on these youngsters are very, very high at a young age. You know, they don't make it, all of a sudden, that's it. You know, they're, oh, well, Chelsea's released me, I won't be able to make it again, or Orient. And the pressure has to be to a point where it's, look, not that you got to keep going, but what if? So if you don't make it here, are you going to continue trialing? If not, are you going to go to school? So these kids coming up, there's got to be a pathway that, listen, if they don't make it through football, then it's school. So it has to be at a certain age where it is level v level, because once they take, if all you know gets taken away from you, and you haven't had time to build that resilience, of course you're going to feel like, rah, you know what do I do? Because that's the same debate with my kids. I'm like, kids think they know it all, and they really don't until you experience it. So a kid would get released, and to his response, I'm done, I'm a failure, I won't make it again. Whereas every adult that's tried something has failed, and then they've got up, and we know that because there's not one person on this planet that has only succeeded. And that what needs to be drummed in from early to these kids. Nobody's saying, look, we're not saying you're not going to make it. We're saying that you may not make it. And if you don't make it, this is what needs to come into play. So I do feel like as much as it's a business, there has to be a duty to care for especially the youngsters coming up in the game.
Do you think that's mostly down to the clubs, or do you think it's also when you're choosing your kind of village, as you call it, you know, your agencies and stuff like that? Because there are a lot of vultures out there, aren't there, that, you know, if you're in an academy at a massive club, but then if you're released, it's like gone.
Yeah, you listen, in life you've got to be careful of who you surround yourself with. And that's, you know, as much as we can as much as we can bring it down and say football, but that's in life. In life, you have got to be careful with who you surround yourself with. You've got to make sure that who's around you is for you, because that's it. You know what I'm saying? You are going to get people who are strictly about the dollar bill or the pound bill, whatever it is. And you have to get people that's for you. So your best interest has to come into play, especially when you're young. Especially when you're young, your best interest. I've had the same agent for 16, 17 years. I won't change that. And before that, I had agents that, you know what, I was just a name. Didn't know me as a person. I was just a name. And you're going to find that. And sometimes I do feel like it's trial and error. Listen, you know, look, it's rare that we find our perfect one. So we date.
It's not like Jerry Maguire, is it?
You get me? You do date, you find it. So sometimes you do have to go through it, and it's experiences. But you have to be careful who you put around you. You literally have to take as much time in who's for you and not just who's around you.
Yeah, exactly. So while you mentioned you have to have a backup plan, that's your advice to young kids. I mean, not everyone's going to become like a cult hero like you are with your beast mode.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but you know, you've always had that on the back burner, haven't you? Your whole branding thing, and that's massive now, isn't it? Beast mode. You really captured the imagination of football fans.
Yeah, you know what? For me, at the age of 30, 29, 30, I realised, raw. But when I hang up my boots, I'm going to have to work again. Like, period. Like, I'm going to have to work. And what happens in football, because football is such a specific industry, when you come out of football, you're starting again, period. So now you're literally in the workforce. So for them 15 years, especially in the lower leagues, you have been whatever in hiatus. And then you come into the real world, and then you're like literally starting at the bottom. So, of course, at 30, I was like, yo, listen, I better start putting some things into place for when I got to hang up my boots. And of course, 8 years ago was when social media started to boom. And okay, I was like, all right, yeah, you know what? Boom, let me jump on this. Let me see what it is. And then, of course, I always say this, like, I didn't set out to be different. I didn't set out to bench 190 kg. I didn't set out to be the biggest footballer. Literally, not, you know what I'm saying, by name. I didn't set out to be that, but also I didn't shy away from it, you know. And I think that's the most powerful thing as an individual, is finding out who and what you are and being comfortable with it. I do feel when you're coming up, when you're unsure is a bit of the wrong word, but when you're coming up, I think you go into places trying to impress rather than trying to do your best. So when right now, I try and do my best. So there's games, like now, there's games where I'm like, rah, I really didn't turn up. And when I was younger, it would have just, it would have shut me down. Like, I'd have been like, it would have messed up my weekend. But for me now, it's like, you know what? Listen, I did, man, I tried.
How did you change that though? Because even today I saw your tweet saying, don't let anyone else control your energy and stuff like that. You always seem such a positive, bouncy, bubbly person. But there must have been times when your head dropped.
Listen, my head still drops now. Like I say it's still now, my head keeps drops. I think as I've gotten older, I do realise that, you know what, it's okay to not feel okay. And I think that's mad important. Yeah. It's okay to not feel okay. But what you then got to try and do is not allow it to continue to drag on. So if I go on a Monday and my energy's just off, I'm like, look, you know what? I'll go into the changing room. They will tell you I don't normally come in on a Monday, which is right. So let's say Thursday. Or Tuesday, let's say. So whenever I go in, if my energy's not right, my energy's not right. And I'll go in, I'll be like, shit, today's just one of them days, you know? Yeah. And then the next day I would look for or try and find something to be like, all right, cool. I feel better today. So, and listen, your reasons and your whys move on, you know. So I'm a father of 5 now. So, and I just do think that you then start putting things into perspective. Mm-hmm. And you're like, look, you know what? For me, these kids of mine, I keep calling them bad breeds. They will just get me out of the mood. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, whereas before it was to play as high as possible. Now it's, you know what, to try and put a smile on these kids' faces, or, you know what, I've got to go and protect these kids, or, you know what, I may want to sit in my bed, but boy, if I don't get up, where's my kids going to eat, or where's my, so your reasons and your whys move on. So, but, and then also, like I keep saying, I'm like, I think not everybody's going to like you. And that I think
that's okay.
And that's okay. I think acceptance is a powerful drug, and being included is a powerful drug. And I think when that defines you, it's a problem. So I keep saying, strip all this away. If I talk to you, B, we will laugh, we will joke, we will banter, with or without cameras. So for me, it's be you. Nobody can be or do you better than you. So that's what I try and be. But again, we're human. Nobody wants to hear negative stuff. Nobody wants to hear, you know what, you're crap, or don't leave my club. Nobody wants to hear that. I don't care how tough you are. Nobody wants to hear that. But at the same time, you're like, well, shit, I don't really check for you. You don't really know me. That's your opinion. And okay, cool. Like, so that's just what it is. It's somebody's opinion. And listen, my quote is, the only opinion that matters is the opinion you have on yourself and your inner circle. Because I'll be lying to say, if somebody you respect says something bad to you, it's going to hit you more than somebody you don't respect. So it's about what you in your inner circle, so your loved ones or your peers or somebody you respect. So again, comes back to, you know, be careful who you put around you, because energy is contagious. So that's where it is. I'm like, but don't get it twisted, B. Like, even me, like, you know, I'm like, oh shit, man, today's one of them days, or struggling with my knee, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I want to be able to do this, but I can't. So I'm still fighting against myself and being like, so listen, I go through all that. Like, don't get the game, I do. But at the same time, I'm like, sometimes I think if you pause and then take yourself out of your situation, sometimes you're just thinking, raw. Like, I ain't gonna lie, I know my knee's bad, and I know I want to score goals, and I want to be able to pin and spin and be mad strong. And then you're like, okay, but you still got your health, your kids are still blessed. And then, you know, you then start shifting what is actually, and that for me, look, that came with age. That's all I can say for me. It came with age. I was at 24, I wasn't like this. You know what I'm saying? At 30, I wasn't like this. No, at 30, I was moving towards this. You know what I'm saying? But the last 6-7 years is when you're like, you know what? I'm comfortable with being me. And I think that's, as soon as I got comfortable with being me, everybody else could say whatever they want to say. I was comfortable. And I think that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah, getting older is underrated, I think.
I'm telling you, fine wine. I keep saying
that. And just finally, Bayo, so right, what's next? You're going to stay in the game, or I mean, I know you're presenting a podcast with Laura Woods. You're doing all those kinds of things in the media as well. Yeah. You've been on the Soccer Special panel.
Yeah.
On Sky. You've done all of that.
You know what? For me, I'm like, it's funny because we are sitting down talking to Amazon and Netflix about a few things. There is the WWE that keeps
Oh yeah,
popping up.
beast mode wrestling. I love it.
That keeps popping up. But you know what? For me, I do think that I think it's a beautiful thing to defy the limitations people put on you. So I think like for 2 decades, I've played this game of football. And I think especially footballers, we are creatures of habit. So I've done the same thing for 20 plus years. And of course, it's scary is not the right word. It's
Daunting.
daunting. I think daunting's even too much. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's exciting the not knowing, but within a structure. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm looking forward to. Listen, I feel that I want to stay in the game in a mentoring capacity. I love that part of it. And even little things with dealing with social media. You know, and of course it's been in the press times, the racial, the way these keyboard warriors are. And, it's funny because I saw a message under a post and I was like, wow, you actually took time to type that, to send it. And that's why I'm like, look, you know what? I remember initially I'd be like, what? No, man, let me respond back. You're just thinking, well, even if they're faceless, even if you see them, you're like, listen, that's there. They need something in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're good over there and dealing with that, not writing, not what's the word, allowing it to touch your soul, sort of thing. So they're the things that I want to stay in the game with. You know what I'm saying? Being like, look, I use social media for me. Like, I know a lot of people saying that, oh well, they've got access for you. I think it is so powerful. I think social media is powerful, and we shouldn't allow those who want to use it for negative to win. So for me, I've used it for me, and that's what I would say to the other people. And sometimes I'm saying, as footballers, sometimes footballers need to have a shut off. So if being social media is their thing, I mean, but if you're a banker, you have a bad day at counting numbers, or you then don't go sit at home and then get your calculator. And sometimes you just be like, look, you know what, boom, I'm going to go and watch a movie, or I'm going to go and footballers are no different. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that social media can be good. It's a good way of like people seeing them outside football, the work that they put in, because sometimes
it's nice to connect with fans and viewers and things like
beautiful.
That. It's a shame for those who aren't like that. That those kind of people, the abusers and the racists, they'd exploit it for everybody.
They do.
But when I first started reporting, obviously I had you're a woman, what do you know about football? Get out of it. All the names I got called.
Yeah.
And people said to me, well, don't be on social media then. But then I thought, but that's not fair on me, because I like to connect with the viewers of Soccer Saturday and things like that. It's good for, connecting with people in the industry, for news, for all of those things. And why should we not be on it just because there are a few idiots who want to ruin our moods?
We can't live by that, because that's just like saying, somebody says something to you on the street, will you not go out your house anymore? I mean, with this, you can't maneuver like that. You can't allow that negative energy to win, because it does
control it either.
100%. So we got to do it where it's like, look, you know what? We continue to focus on the positives, but we're flipping on it in the sense where, look, if you can do algorithms where certain words can't be, these social media companies can do a lot more to make it an exclusive place. So that's what we got to keep doing. We ain't got to look at it and start saying, nah, let's come off it. Nah, let's get them off it rather than them. And that's only the conversation that should be. But coming back to it, that's what I would like to stay in the football. I don't think I could be a coach with the jacket and the hat on the side.
No, it's too much stress. I don't know how Gareth does it with his leather jacket as well.
It's too much.
Does he not feel the cold, the man?
Listen, he thinks he's a soldier. Literally, he's a strong man. I'm not going to lie to him, but he's forever got his shirt. He's got his hamburger chest out and that. Nah, man. Listen, I can't do it.
And one more, I'll tell you what I can do. I'm going to have a word with Ray Winston, get you on his next film. You look like you could be a henchman.
You know what? I'm telling you, Ray Winston, legend in the game. Tell him his next film, holler at me. I'm security. I'm shutting it down. We can do this. You know what I'm saying? We got this. All right, blessings.